contrast the North and the South between the 1820s and the 1860s. In the North, they have freezing cold winters and hot, humid summers. The climate is humid continental. There is more precipitation in the North than in the South. Many froze to death. In the South, the climate is humid subtropical. There's more heat in the South because it's closer to the equator. There's not a noticeable change in the seasons, and the South had a longer growing season because it's warmer there, which gives them more crops and the ability to get more money. Grassland in the west and had some interior plains and part of the Appalachian Mountains in the east. There were many rivers and good lakes to ship. The Erie Canal was built in 1817 to 1825. It connected the North and allowed them to trade with each other more easily.
Look around here, little Johnny. Look at all this forest. Look, little Johnny, there's even a deer. You see that?
Yeah.
Look out here. This is the Erie Canal, little Johnny. Look, there's even a boat in there right now. It's shipping corn. What a pleasant surprise, little Johnny, right?
Yeah.
They have lots of coastal plains. They have most of the Appalachian Mountains, and they have also many swampy areas deeper in the south.
We have a boy climbing up the Appalachian Mountains. It looks like it's very struggling for him. He's trying to get to the top. Can he do it? He's getting there. And what do we have? We're going down to Louisiana in the deep south. We have a boy playing in the swamp. Looks like he's trying to get something and stomping in the water. Something he just looks like he's having a great time.
Now on to agriculture. In the north, they grow crops like beans, corn, and wheat. Because of their climate, they can't grow southern-style crops like cotton and tobacco. In 1860, more farmers were in north than the south. Northern farms were smaller and families worked on them. West of the Appalachian Mountains was called the breadbasket.
Young boy hoeing corn. He's planting it too. The North could grow these crops along with wheat and beans and other crops, but they could not grow the southern style crops because they had a short growing season and winter came, as you can see by the snow on my right.
The South had very long growing seasons. They grew different crops than in the North. They grew cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane. 75% of the world's cotton came from the South. Cotton fields relied on slaves.
Slaves picking cotton. The South was able to grow these crops because they had a much longer growing season than the North. They also grew other crops like tobacco and sugarcane. The cotton fields are in the back, over 1,000 acres, just like many of the old southern plantations used to be like.
The Industrial Revolution occurred between 1750 and 1850, 100 years. The North made textiles from the cotton that the South produced. 20 million people were working in industry or factories by the mid-century. The North had 5 times as many factories as the South, so this left them to have a big advantage. The North also had 70% of the country's railroads to transport their goods.
We have gentlemen cutting down trees. The North used trees to build ships so they could carry merchandise and trade with other people. In the background, we have boys that appear to be setting logs down the river so they can be picked up at other points and made into ships and other materials.
These are immigrants working at the factories. He is German, he is also German, and he is Irish. They work at the factories for 5 times as much as they could back home. Factories are all in northern industry. They're making these clothes from southern cotton. The South didn't have as much industry as the North. The one thing that they did create was the cotton gin. Cotton gin, the gin part stands for engines, like a cotton engine. This made it easier to produce cotton at a higher and faster rate. Slaves could make up to 1 to 1,000 pounds of cotton a day. The cotton gin was created by a northerner named Eli Whitney. When the cotton gin was invented by Eli Whitney, who was a northerner from Massachusetts, slave production increased dramatically. A slave could go from picking 1 pound of cotton for 10 hours, doing over 1,000 pounds per day. These people right here these slaves right here are using the cotton gin. This man is picking it by hand. Slave production increased dramatically. North had many immigrants that came to work in factories. Between 1848 and 1860, nearly 3.5 million immigrants came to the back home in the U.S. These are little immigrants coming in to America. They're from
Oh,
Germany
yeah.
and Ireland. They're going to America. Africans were immigrated against their will. They were brought as slaves. Very little people came from Europe to the South. There were 4 million slaves in the South. Slave being tried against his will. Over here we have a German immigrant who says he'll work for $5. And here's a slave who says he'll work for free. The slave owners would choose the slave because they didn't want to have to pay the labor.
Finally, I'm in the North social class. First, we're rich whites. Second, ordinary whites. Third, poor whites. Fourth, immigrants. And last, free blacks. On the top of the North social class are rich whites. Second on the North social class, ordinary whites. Third on the North social class are poor whites. Fourth on the North social class are immigrants. And last on the social class are free African Americans.
At the top of the South social pyramid, there are rich planters who own more than 5 or more slaves. The second is rich planters that own 1 to 4 slaves. Third are the whites who own 0 slaves. 4 are free African Americans, and 5 are slaves. At the top of the South social pyramid, there are white, rich planters who own 5 or more slaves. The second on the social pyramid is planters who own 1 to 4 slaves. Third are poor white people who own no slaves. The fourth are free African Americans. And the fifth are slaves.